Let's not waste any time. I have a feeling this is going to be a very, very busy WrestleMania season, and part of that is because it is December, and it's already started 24 hours removed from the last time we spoke. Here we are again, a bonus Notsam Wrestling. We're going to have another Notsam Wrestling tomorrow with Baron Corbin in the studio. We are confirmed a live Notsam Wrestling podcast going down Royal Rumble weekend. Friday, the day before the Royal Rumble at 5 p.m., SideSplitters Comedy in Tampa, Florida. Be there. Go to notsamlive.com. Get your tickets right now. The day before the Rumble, January 26th at 5 p.m., Notsam Wrestling will be live at SideSplitters Comedy Club in Tampa, Florida. Just confirmed right before we started this show. So get your tickets first. Get them now. And have the time of your life. Look, I mean, so much went down yesterday on Monday night. And we'll talk about a lot of it later, right? That's not what today is about, necessarily, I guess. Yeet coming back. Everything counts. I told you everything counted. Cleveland, all these references to Cleveland and Stardust debuting, Nia Jax and Becky Lynch having a rivalry that is something that started years and years and years ago. Miz and Ciampa being partners and having it referenced that they had this rivalry a year ago. How about Cena meeting MJF on the red carpet? Well, what we're here to talk about is the fact that with all this going on, Monday's Raw was a fabulous Raw, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we got the Seth Rollins CM Punk confrontation. We thought that Friday Night SmackDown was the CM Punk promo that we were waiting for, but let's be honest, Monday night's CM Punk Seth Rollins confrontation was even better. So, we already start the night, and like I said, everything counts with Drew McIntyre coming out and saying that the locker room does not want CM Punk on Monday Night Raw. Nick Aldis can have him, and he's going to destroy the place from the inside. We're already... Now, Jey Uso had said, "What up to my dog?" or something like that, CM Punk, to start things off. So we're already seeing that there are people that like him, there are people that don't like him. WWE is expertly playing into the fact that CM Punk is, at this moment, the most controversial figure in the entire industry, not just on screen, but for everything that's gone on backstage. And they're playing into that in a way that is so good for business. That's the connection that has to be made. You want to play into that, but in a way that is so incredibly great for business. So what we have is CM Punk coming to the ring, right? And he first apologizes. He talks about Cleveland as a whole. Everything counts. He talks about the fact that when he got to Cleveland, it was the first time for the WWE, was his WWE debut. Shouts out Mickie James and says he came out with Mickie James on his arm, and apparently he was so good that they sent him packing to Louisville, Kentucky, and Ohio Valley Wrestling. And that's where he begins to tell the story of being put into an environment that was uncomfortable, but embracing it, embracing being uncomfortable and making it work, making it home. He said he went through the same thing when he left OVW and got to the WWE main roster, right? He cited the fact that Cleveland was not just the place that he debuted for the WWE. Cleveland was the place that he got punted and had to sacrifice being the world champion. Walked in to defend the title on a pay-per-view, and not only did he not leave the pay-per-view with the title, he didn't even get to be in the main event because of a backstage angle. And then we, of course, go all the way forward to 10 years ago when he walked out on the company in Cleveland. So this one building, this one venue holds all that negative history for CM Punk, and CM Punk apologizes to anybody that's in the audience or anybody that's watching that expected to see CM Punk on that night 10 years ago and didn't get to. He says he had to jump off the hamster wheel. And for better or worse, He has no regrets. He then says that he doesn't want that to be what Cleveland is about for him. He's in Cleveland to bury his ghosts. And so he wants to take control of his future and of his present, quite frankly. And he says, Cleveland, this is now the memory of this building. And he signs a contract to be a Monday Night Raw superstar. Here he is. And we think this is it, right? And I'm already going, like, the fact that he referenced walking out, the fact that he referenced the not so great angle where he couldn't even main event as champion, the fact that we're not done. Oh, Seth Rollins' music starts playing, and CM Punk is standing in the ring. And it's like, are we doing this? Because we talked about it on the Monday podcast, but Seth Rollins was the one name that CM Punk would not mention when he was going over everybody that he could have a problem with or could not have a problem with on SmackDown. He referenced Seth Rollins. He wouldn't utter his name. So there was this thought that maybe they're going to keep these two separated for as long as possible, but apparently as long as possible was the weekend, because out comes CM Punk. I'm sorry, Seth Rollins. I'm excited to interrupt CM Punk. And we see that image, Punk and Rollins toe-to-toe. And Seth Rollins tells CM Punk that he is fortunate to be standing in the ring, but to make no mistake, this place is not your home. This place is my home. Seth Rollins tells CM Punk, you abandoned this place 10 years ago. And not only did you abandon it, but in those 10 years, you actively tried to tear it down. He says that Punk slandered Seth Rollins and everybody that was in the locker room. He said, Punk, this is not your home. This is my home. This immediately answers a question. How, in his first promo back, can you have CM Punk just come out and say that he's home? People jump to the conclusion that, well, he must just be neutered. This must be PG Punk. This must be corporate Punk. No. Why did Punk come out the night after Survivor Series and say that he's home? So that a week, 2 weeks, however long ago it was at this point, later, Seth Rollins can come out and call him on his BS. Yes, it was hypocritical for CM Punk to say that he was home. And guess what? Seth Rollins' role in this whole thing is to call it out. If Punk had never said, I'm home, then that whole front of the promo that Seth Rollins just cut makes no sense. Everything counts. And when I was coming up with a rule number 3, the only other thing that I could think of was, and this is something we should remember, it's not an official rule, but you got to let him cook. At this point, the way WWE is right now, you have to let them cook. Why is Punk saying this thing? Give it a beat, let him cook, and let's see why. Because if we had waited until Monday night, that's why. Because we're telling stories, pal. We're making movies, baby. He says, Seth says that he's going to protect his home from people like CM Punk. Now, of course, this goes back to the Punk-Adam Page story. The difference between this story and the way Seth is doing it and the Hangman Page story with Punk is that when Hangman and Punk did it, there was clearly some real tension where they were not on the same page. Secondly, that story that Punk and Hangman Page did about Hangman Page protecting the AEW championship in the locker room from CM Punk, that was a total behind-the-scenes story. That had nothing to do with what was in front of the camera. That had nothing to do with what was actually happening. At that point in AEW, CM Punk was looked at as this guy who was going to be the new big star of the company. It was all good. There wasn't a negative feeling from the audience about CM Punk. CM Punk had come to AEW to be the big star of that company. And as he said from the beginning, to help get younger guys over. Whether that was true or false doesn't matter. The perception of why is CM Punk in AEW is to help AEW. And it all went awry, and it starts with that story that doesn't make sense based on what we've been shown in front of our face. The difference here is that the whole AEW run happened. So now the word out on CM Punk is that he's a liability in the locker room. When he debuts at Survivor Series, Seth is flipping him off. Drew McIntyre might be mad at him. When he's on SmackDown, Kevin Owens doesn't want to speak to him. When he's on Raw, Drew McIntyre is slandering him. We're setting up that the locker room may not all want CM Punk there. So when Seth Rollins comes out and says it, not only does it feel real, but there's a cohesiveness. There's a cohesion to the story that's being told. It's not just, ooh, this might be real. Ooh, there's probably some real animosity here. It's also, yes, and this is the story that we've been following for the last few weeks. This isn't just coming out of nowhere. Seth says, make no mistake about it, CM Punk. I hate you. He says, I hate you, CM Punk. Whoa. Those are strong words. I hate you, but he says he's glad that CM Punk is on Raw. Because if CM Punk is on Raw, then Seth Rollins is going to be able to watch him. And Seth Rollins is going to be able to make sure that one of two things happens. The first, he says that he'll be able to watch CM Punk expose himself and self-destruct like he always does. And he gets right in Punk's face. And he says, because we both know this is your last chance. Now, this whole part right here is like, whoa. Because any of us that follow this are like, yeah, this is CM Punk's last chance. There's nowhere else for him to go after here. He says that he'll watch himself destruct, and then Seth will be the one to kick him out and watch his legacy go down. And you're like, yeah, this is it. If Punk screws this one up, he doesn't get another chance to prove that, hey, he's actually a positive thing in the wrestling industry. This thing that he did will always have this asterisk, but he was never able to fully exist in a locker room. And the fact that Seth Rollins is calling this out on television and saying you'll self-destruct like you always do, blaming him for everything that's happened controversially over the last 10 years or beyond of Punk's career, is saying a lot. He says if you have changed and you're somehow not going to self-destruct, and maybe you get to the point where you can stand toe-to-toe with the world heavyweight champion, well then I'm going to be the one who exposes you. And I'm going to expose you by wrestling circles around you and showing everybody in real time what it means to be the best in the world. This is where it gets real again. There is a huge difference between telling somebody, I'm going to beat you in the ring 1, 2, 3. When you say, I'm going to beat you in the ring 1, 2, 3, then you're saying, okay, we're in this world of professional wrestling. We're telling stories, and we all know what we're doing here. When you say, I'm going to wrestle circles around you and expose you as not being the best because I'm the best, what you're telling him is that this isn't about wins and losses. This isn't about booking. This is about the fact that I'm much better at this than you. You can't go at this rate anymore. And I'm going to show the world how much of a better wrestler I am than you. Okay, that's not, oh, you don't want to fight me because you can't beat me. That's, no. We're not telling stories anymore. You're not as good of a wrestler as I am, and you can't keep up with me in the ring. And the whole world's going to see it, and it's going to be very embarrassing for you. This is shoot interview stuff, baby. This is what we live for. Now, obviously, we're telling stories here, but with this, that's that difference. That's that line that gets crossed where it's like, we are really able to suspend disbelief. He says, and then Punk asks him, "Are you done?" He says, "That's the one pass that I'll give you to speak to me disrespectfully before I come at you." Punk says that he's here to do things the hard way, like he's always done, and that's why he's announcing that he's in the Royal Rumble, and when he wins, he says, "I'm coming after you." Music plays, Punk goes off. Now look, this is up there, maybe the best promo that Seth Rollins has ever cut. Seth Rollins was masterful here. The fact that we're telling a story based in reality is not an easy thing to do. If it's more reality than story, then you run the risk of losing the audience, and you run the risk of not being able to act in a professional capacity with your dance partner. But if you go to pro wrestling, nobody's going to buy into it. People are going to go, okay, well, you know, I get that this started as a real thing, but now we're just watching pro wrestling. That's fun, but it's just another story. No. This is very different. And Seth proved how well he can do, as if anybody needed that proof in that promo. He was excellent. My favorite Seth Rollins promo ever. And that image of them toe-to-toe, if that promo work from Seth Rollins didn't get you excited, I don't know what will. It says a lot about Seth Rollins when you think about it, that clearly they're setting up for a CM Punk versus Seth Rollins match. One that I would assume is going to take place at WrestleMania. 2 years ago at WrestleMania, a giant AEW signing was brought back to the WWE. His name was Cody Rhodes. They want to put him in the best position possible. Who is his opponent that night at WrestleMania? Seth Rollins. Modern day, WWE does it again. Brings the biggest star AEW has back to the WWE. Who is the first major person that they're putting him in with? Seth Rollins. It tells you everything you need to know about Seth Rollins, that he's the guy that was trusted to be the first major opponent for both Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. It says, it speaks so highly to his ability. I don't know what other accomplishment could. Now, Seth Rollins on SmackDown did say that, I'm sorry, CM Punk on SmackDown did say that he wants to main event WrestleMania. And this means something very different than it used to, right? Because there's 2 nights of WrestleMania. But based just on that promo alone, and the fact that we've now got, 6 weeks until the Royal Rumble, and then another 2 months after that, 2.5 months before WrestleMania, if you are going with CM Punk versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, I think that there is at least a conversation to be had that it may be the main event of night 2. I think we can at least, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think we can at least have the conversation that we may be looking at a reality where if it's Cody versus Roman, and I would guess that it will be, Cody versus Roman might be night 1. And Punk versus Rollins might be night 2. Might not. We got all excited last year. There were many of us, probably myself included, that said, look, I don't know, Sami Zayn may be the bigger star right now. And by the time we got to WrestleMania, it was clear Cody versus Roman was exactly what needed to be in the main event slot of night 2. It was the right match at the right time, period. And I have no doubt that by the time we get to WrestleMania, the right decision will be made for the story that is intending to be told at WrestleMania 40. But what I am telling you is, depending on what that story is, the fact that Roman and Cody main evented last year, the fact that Punk has changed everything. Punk showing up at Survivor Series changes everything. 3 weeks ago, Rollins versus Punk was not the plan for WrestleMania. So the idea that we've been planning something way in advance, everything gets thrown out the window and is at least up for discussion now. And what I'm telling you is, as hot as CM Punk is right now, and as good as that promo was, as incredible as Seth Rollins was, there is no way you can tell me that it's not at least worth a conversation that CM Punk versus Seth Rollins will end up main eventing night 2. I believe we will still get Roman and Cody, however that goes. I'm not saying it could be the main event of night 1. I think what we're looking at with Punk and Rollins, because a question that comes in quickly is, well, who's the babyface? Who's the heel? In this instance, it doesn't matter, at least right now. The way this story evolves, it could evolve in a lot of different ways. Punk is not a heel here. Everybody is happy to see Punk. Right now, nobody's booing that guy, and they shouldn't boo that guy. It's incredibly exciting that he's back, that he's going to be competing at a Royal Rumble, that he's going to be at a WrestleMania. We never thought we'd see this. And even if we did, it was one of those, yeah, one day. There's no way he's going to get booed. But realistically, Seth Rollins is 100% right in everything that he's saying and is fighting for what he perceives to be the honor of the WWE. He's not coming from a selfish place, at least right now. I think that the story that we've got going into WrestleMania, at least right now, or I don't even want to say WrestleMania because who knows where it's going to go. The story that we've got with CM Punk versus Seth Rollins is that before we can tell any other CM Punk story, he can't just say he's happy to be home. He needs to prove that he's home. He needs to prove that he's a WWE superstar, and he needs to prove that he's here for the benefit of the WWE and that he can still hang with modern day WWE. I believe that Seth Rollins is the gatekeeper and should be the gatekeeper of modern day WWE. And the story that I see right now is that if CM Punk wants to prove to the locker room, to the fans, to everybody watching that this is where he belongs, he's going to have to prove it to Seth Rollins first. And Seth Rollins is going to have to give the okay. That's what I see. It's got my blood moving. I'm feeling it. I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. I promised you that I would come in here for a bonus pod, emergency podcast, Rollins and Punk. What a moment that we had. Thank you to everybody that was interacting with me on Twitter while we were watching Raw. You are the reason that I jumped on here because there was so much interest in seeing this happen from you guys. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you leave a rating. If you're listening on Apple, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you leave a rating and a review on YouTube. Comments, likes, subscriptions, the whole thing. And if you want to hang out, Royal Rumble weekend, Friday in Tampa, 5 p.m., SideSplitters Comedy Club. Go to notsamlive.com. Keep checking the channel or the audio feed because we'll be back this week with another podcast, Baron Corbin in the Notsam studio.